About the Texas method today. Let me put my phone on mute here. um, this is my go-to program for most of the lifters in the gym right after they finish their linear progression. And it's a real popular program. It's really flexible if you know how to use it. It gets a lot of crap online for being too hard, for grinding guys into a pulp, going too much intensity, too much volume. And that really comes from a fundamental, I think, misunderstanding of how to adjust volume and intensity. So what we're going to do in the talk is go over how to set up the Texas method, which will be a little bit redundant for those of you that are watching that are more advanced lifters. But we'll just talk about the details of setting it up. And then we're going to talk about some common mistakes that people make in terms of adjusting volume and intensity to keep this thing going for as long as they can. We'll talk about how I run it in the gym and the strategies that I use to, run it through once or multiple times. And then we'll go over a couple different programming templates that we use for like a twice a week setup for an older guy, a 4-day split. And then we're going to look at a 4-week cycle. And then finally, we'll look at meet prep because it's one of my favorite programs to get someone ready for a powerlifting meet. So with that, let's get started. The first slide I've got here is just setting up the basic Texas method. Now, like I said, this is my go-to program for most of the lifters in the gym after they finish their linear progression. They're either going to do Texas method or they're going to do a heavy, light, medium setup. And it really depends on how old they are, how dedicated they are to training, whether I think that they can be consistent and get into the gym regularly enough that the program will actually work. So if they're going to miss a bunch of sessions, then it's not very useful to run the Texas method because they'll come in and do volume day and then they won't show up for intensity day and the whole thing will be screwed up. So, but my favorite thing about it is that it's the best way to expose a lifter to reps other than sets of 5. So if they've been doing their linear progression, then they've been doing 5s the whole time. And the Texas method is a really useful way to expose them to triples, doubles, and singles. And so typically I try and run it through one time. So we'll finish the linear progression and we'll talk about how to set that up in a second or how to make that transition. And then we're going to run some version of the Texas method for one cycle through, meaning we're going to go from an intensity day of 5s all the way down to triples, doubles, and then singles. Once we run out the singles and they stop working, then we're going to reevaluate what to do next with the lifter. But that progression down, which I'll cover in just a second, will usually be their first exposure to a heavy single. And from there, we'll have basically a 1-rep max that they can use to calculate more complicated training programs. I'm going to try and focus this camera really quick, so just bear with me for 1 second because it looks like it's getting a little blurry on me. Let me see if this fixes it. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay. Let me make myself smaller again. Okay. Everything's still sounding good. Someone give me a thumbs up if I don't want any feedback or anything like that. If we're looking good. All right, I'm just going to keep talking until I get something. Oh, there we go. Drag. Okay. So classic Texas method. This is it on the screen. You can see we've got Monday is your volume day. Wednesday is a light day. Friday is intensity day. And we're going to talk about what that means in just a second. Well, you know what? We'll go into it right now. So think about volume and intensity like the thermostat in your oven. Okay, so if you've got a big hunk of meat in there and you're trying to cook that meat to a certain temperature, like let's say you're trying to get it to 165, right? The thermostat represents the volume. In other words, the oven will kick on the heat on and off to regulate that temperature and get that meat to 165 degrees. The intensity is the temperature of the meat, right? So if we have too much volume, meaning too much heat on our big hunk of meat, then we're going to burn it, right? And if we don't have enough volume or enough heat, then we're not going to cook the meat the way we want. So we use volume to drive up our intensity. And most of the time, the volume is going to go up, meaning we're going to add heat, right? But it also will occasionally, your thermostat in the oven will kick off the heat just to make sure that the temperature or the volume doesn't get too high and we overcook it. So we're separating those two variables. As a novice lifter, volume and intensity are all wrapped up into one training session. As you move into more intermediate training, we're splitting the two, right? So we're going to manipulate those separately. So this is a great example of how to do that. So if we look at Friday, Friday's our intensity day, right? We're doing a lot of weight. This is heavy weight for not a lot of reps. So we're going to start off with 1 set of 5 on volume on intensity day, right? And I'll explain what these other rep ranges are in a second. Volume day, meaning the Monday workout, that's going to be the heat. That's going to provide the stress. So we're going to do 5 sets of 5 there. Okay. And that weight is going to be about 10% less than our intensity day. Okay. And we're going to go over this. Well, I'll just jump ahead and let me see if I can look at that offset right there. So let's say you're ending, maybe this will help a little bit. You're ending your linear progression. Okay. So we're at the end of LP. Typically, a lifter at the end of LP is going to be doing 1 heavy top set and 2 back off sets. So here you see on Monday, we've got our guy doing 320 for a set of 5, and then he's taking about 10% off, and he's going to do 285 for 2 sets of 5, right? Wednesday, he should have a light day if he's on the advanced novice program or something like that. And then Friday, this is our last day of LP. We bumped him up to 325. He only hit a set of 4. He did 2 back off sets. Now we've decided, all right, we're going to switch you over and start the Texas method. Okay. So the first week of Texas method, we're going to start on Friday. So this green box down here. Now, since he missed a rep on Friday, the previous week, I'm going to back him off a little bit. And so I usually use this opportunity to take a little bit of weight off of whatever weight he was lifting on Friday at the end of his LP. So he ended with 325 for 4. I'm going to back him down to 315. Just give him a little bit of headroom so he doesn't grind to a halt right away. And we're going to start with 1 set of 5 on Friday at 315. Now, to calculate the volume work for that, meaning the Monday's workout, that's going to be about 10% less. So 280 for 5 sets of 5. So more than 3 sets of 5, more than he's used to on Monday. Light day in the middle, this is about 80%. And then we start the Texas method with intensity day of 315 for 1 set of 5. That's it. Okay. So that's how we set it up. Back off. Usually you back off a little bit from your last heavy set of LP and set that number as your intensity day, then back out 10%. And you can start your volume at 90% of whatever your intensity day is. That works for all the lifts except the deadlift, which I'll talk about in a second. So if we go back to this sheet, we've got our intensity day on Friday, 1 set of 5, volume days, 5 sets of 5, a 10% offset, 90% of that, right? Wednesday is just a light day. So if you stick with me on the squat here, Wednesday is just a light day. It's 80% of whatever you did for your volume day. And then, like I said, Friday will be intensity day. And this is the same thing for bench and press. They alternate week to week. So week 1, we're going to bench volume and bench intensity. And then week 2, we're going to flip it so that we're pressing volume on Monday and pressing intensity on Friday. So each week flips in priority for the bench and press. And then the light day is whatever the alternate is. So if we're benching, if bench is the priority for week 1, then press will be a light day. And that light day is 90% of the volume day. So stick with me here. 90% of whatever your last volume day press was. Okay, so that's the light day and those flip-flop. Okay, now over here on the end, if you look at the intensity day part, you're going to see all these numbers in parentheses. So we're starting the Texas method with 1 set of 5, 1 heavy set of 5, of which your volume day is 90% for 5 sets of 5. Okay. Volume stays the same. We're doing 5 sets of 5, the whole program. Okay. Intensity day will be adjusted. So intensity day, if you look up here, the intensity day, the weight always goes up. So we are going to keep adding weight to the bar every Friday or every intensity day, but we're going to drop the number of reps down as needed to keep this thing moving, right? And I'll show you exactly how that works on one of the next slides. So we're going to start with a set of 5, and we're going to run that for as long as we can. Just adding, if he's squatting 5 pounds to the bar every time, if he's benching or pressing, it might be 2.5 pounds on intensity day. So he's going up every time, 5 pounds, 5 pounds. And then eventually we're going to get to the point where he can't do that anymore. And it's going to get really shaky. We usually try and switch the rep range before he fails. So it doesn't always work. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But if you look at a set of 5 and it's just grindy as hell, we're going to drop down the next intensity day to 2 triples. So he'll do 2 sets of 3. So if you look in the parentheses, that's what that first 2 by 3 is. And then we're going to keep adding weight. And then as triples drop out, we'll switch to doubles. He'll do 3 doubles. The goal is on intensity day to basically accumulate about 5 reps. And then eventually we'll drop down to 5 singles. So we're starting with a set of 5 and we keep adding weight every time, dropping the rep range down as needed until we get to triples, doubles, and then eventually we're doing 5 singles. We'll run that out. And then from there, once we hit that final single and he fails that final single, we kind of know a 1 rep max and we can move on to something else or restart the program. And we'll talk about how to do that in a second. Classic Texas method. The power clean is listed in here. I put it in here because that's how it is in the book and I don't want to get in trouble. In reality, I hate power cleans. And so what I usually do is deadlifting. So we'll add volume and intensity deadlifting. So if you look at the bottom of this slide down here, it says 3 sets of 5. So I usually deadlift volume day, 3 sets of 5, not as many sets. I think 5 sets of 5 deadlifting is a little bit excessive for a lifter at this point. And the intensity offset I use between volume day and intensity day for the deadlift is actually a little bit lighter than what we'd use in the squat or the press. So like we talked about earlier, the offset from volume to intensity on the squat and bench is volume is about 90%. If we're going to add deadlifts here into the regular Texas Method program, I usually use about 85%. Just because I find that a little bit lighter weight tends to keep things, it doesn't beat the guy up as much. But if you want to do power cleans, you can put them in right there and there's no problem with that. They work great if you like them. And then the light day, we're just doing chin-ups, 3 sets, as many reps as possible. Remember, the point of light day is to let it be light and not accumulate more stress. It's just to keep the movement pattern fresh so everything's not so stale, okay? So that's the basic Texas method. And the key thing to remember about this is your weight on volume day, assuming you hit all 5 sets of 5, goes up versus the previous volume day. So if you start out with 280 and you get all 5 sets of 5, then you're going to do 285 next week, 290, 295. Volume day beats volume day. Intensity day beats intensity day. And it always goes up, but you adjust the reps down a little bit. Okay, so as you can't do 5s anymore, you drop to triples, doubles, and eventually singles, but the weight keeps going up. Okay, good. So we talked about how to switch from LP, which is basically just a little offset, a little tiny reset from your last heavy day, and then that reset weight, 5 or 10 pounds less, becomes the first intensity day for a set of 5, and then you back out 10% for volume day. So 90% of that weight would be 315s, 280, 5 sets of 5, and then you're off to the races. Okay, so let's talk about some common problems with this. In adjusting volume and intensity. Okay, I'm going to leave my screen here. Maybe I'll make it a little smaller okay. So this is where a lot of guys screw this up, okay? Because it's a very simple program so far. But the part where it grinds guys into a halt is that they don't reset volume day. Okay, remember, we're thinking about it like an oven, like a thermostat. Sometimes we kick the heat on so that we can add heat to the oven. And sometimes we have to cut the heat and allow the meat to cook and not overcook. Okay, so you're the meat in this example. We don't want to overcook you and grind you into a pulp. So these offsets are important. Okay, if our intensity day is 1 set of 5 as we're starting the program, okay, then our volume day will be 90% of that weight for 5 sets of 5. Simple. We just covered that. If when we drop down to triples, we're going to reset the volume day. Okay, we're going to back it off a little bit to 85% of whatever weight you're using for your triples. Okay, because if we don't drop the intensity and we keep adding weight, we don't drop the volume or reset it and we keep adding weight, then those two things are going to get too close. Your volume is going to be basically too intense and the whole thing is going to grind to a halt. So if we drop down from triples to doubles, you're going to go back to volume day and back it down a little bit. So 82.5% for 5 sets of 5. And then finally singles, when you finally switch over to singles, you're going to drop down, make sure your volume day is about 80% of that. So what I usually do is, let's say we get a guy stuck at 405. He's doing intensity day, 405, and it's just his one set of 5 is grindy as hell. So we're going to bump him up. I know next week I'm going to drop him down to triples. So I will take, and we're going to go to 410, right? We're going to bump him up 5 pounds and then drop down to triples. So I'll take 410 and since we're moving to triples, I'll make volume day 85% of that. So it's a little bit of a reset. So if we look at this example on the right here, this is totally hypothetical. This is not how it usually works. But just so you get an idea of what we're doing here, week 1, we start off 315 for intensity day. Volume day is 280. That's 90%. Okay. Next time he hit that, no problem. We're going to 320 and 285. Then we're going 325, 290, 330, 295. So we get a month and he's sticking with sets of 5. He's able to do sets of 5 on intensity day. Now we switch him down to triples. So maybe 330 was really gnarly. And so we know next time we're going to drop to 2 sets of 3, but the weight keeps going up. So we made a 5-pound jump. We're going to reset the volume day back down to 285. So we basically backed it down 10 pounds. Okay. And that just gives them a little bit, takes some of the heat off, right? And it'll be a welcome deload from grinding out volume day and grinding out intensity day. And so then he's doing triples. Again, we're driving the weight up every time on intensity day, 340, 345, and making sure volume is going up accordingly. And then again, we get to the point where we're going to drop him down a rep range on intensity day. So we drop to doubles. That means volume day has to come down a little bit. So we're just going to back it down 5 pounds, right, to 290, make sure it's 82.5%. It's a ballpark. And that'll give him that keeps that space between volume and intensity where we want it. So it's not getting too grindy. And then if in this example, we go all the way down to singles on our last line here, week 12, we're dropping down to singles. And so I want to make sure that volume day gets adjusted back down so that it's enough of an offset that we're not beating the shit out of this guy. Okay. So there's the idea that, volume always needs to go up to drive intensity day or to drive the intensity. And that is true in certain scenarios, but there's also something to be said for backing it off a little bit and actually reducing the stress and allowing this peak to happen. Because that's really what we're doing. We're trying to get this guy at the end of however long he's going to run the program to sort of peak with a heavy 1 rep max or a heavy single. And so along the way, volume has to be adjusted down. Okay. Now this can take, I've had guys run this for over a year, making these very slight adjustments in their reductions in their volume, every couple months. And then I've had other lifters where they run through all the way down from 5s to singles in the matter of like a month and a half, 2 months, and then it's just over. They just don't do that well on the Texas method, and we got to move on to something else for whatever reason, right? But the mistake I see all the time with people complaining about the program not working is, again, not occasionally making this adjustment where you just back off the heat a little bit and reduce how heavy your volume day is. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully to everybody. I'm trying to look at these questions, but I'm trying to go in here, so maybe I'll go back through them at the end. I'm grinding through 375 and the intensity is 4. Okay, so you got to do the math on that one, Mike. All right, so hope that makes sense. If not, we'll talk about it a little bit more at the end. deadlift programming, like I alluded to a little bit earlier, I personally swap out the power clean for the deadlift. And and just like I said at the beginning, I like to reduce the weight of the volume day a little bit more than the other lifts. So I like to make deadlifting a little bit lighter than squatting and pressing. So if we're using typically the offset for intensity day and volume day. So if you're doing fives on intensity day, 90% for volume day on squats, benches, presses, deadlift, I'm going to use 85%, and I'm only going to do 3 or 4 sets, right? So again, deadlifts are, personally, they beat the crap out of me. So less is more. And then 80%. So if we're dropping down to triples on intensity day for the deadlift, right? I'm going to have them do, when we start intensity day, it's going to be a set of 5, plain and simple, like he's been doing. And then when we drop down to triples, I'm going to add another back off set. So on intensity day, he'll do a triple, and then we're going to back off, 10% or so. And then he's going to do 1 additional set. I say AMRAP, right? As many reps as possible. I don't want him to fail on his back off set. So we usually shoot for a couple extra reps. So if he hit a triple, then we're going to do, shoot for 3 to 5 on your back off set. When we drop down to doubles, right, the back off set, he might get 2 to 4 reps. And then finally he's going to pull 1 single on intensity day. And then maybe a back off, he'll get 1 to 3 reps, something like that. So we can pull this up. So just trying to refocus here. And then, the volume day offsets, just like we talked about, those have to adjust accordingly. So in our example with all the other lifts, it's 90%. It's basically 5% reduction with each as the reps drop down on intensity day. And then in the deadlift, it's just 5% less than those numbers. So it's just we keep things a little bit lighter on the deadlift. Not everybody has to do that. Some people don't have an issue keeping volume and intensity close on the deadlift. For me, I found it keeps lifters going a little bit longer if you make the deadlift offset just a little bit lighter. Okay. Good. So let's look at a 4-day version. So the 3-day version, I'm going to put my average dude on. If I get a 25-year-old guy who's dedicated to training, he's eating, he's showing up for his workouts, I'll throw him on the classic Texas method for as long as I can. I may even throw an older lifter on it and just expect that it's not going to last very long. But once we run the classic version of the Texas method from 5s all the way down to singles on intensity day, and then we fail at the singles, then it's time to move on to something else. And so one of the easiest things to switch to is a 4-day version. Okay. So the 4-day version is basically an upper lower split. So I run this because most of the people in the gym are used to training Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I run a 4-day program over a 3-day week. So it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is the whole program. Traditionally, you can run this Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday if you wanted to. I don't want to be in the gym that long or for 4 days a week. I'd rather be in there for 2 days a week, which we'll get to in a second. But this version keeps lifters on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, and it works just fine. So, and it actually is kind of nice because you end up with an upper body day, a lower body day, and then an upper body day. And then the following week, you get lower, upper, lower. So you have a kind of an easy week and then a hard week and an easy week and then a hard week. And same thing here. So anytime for the rest of these slides that you see intensity, it says 1x5, but know that it follows the same path of everything else, where we're going to start with a set of 5 and we're going to work our way down to triples, doubles, and singles. Okay. So this is you're pressing intensity on Monday and then benching volume and then do some dips or whatever you want for assistance work. The next day, you're going to do squat intensity, deadlift volume. Again, deadlift is a little bit lighter than the intensity or the volume weight of the other lifts. Then back to bench intensity, press volume. So those flip-flop, got to throw curls in there. And then finally, deadlift intensity, squat volume, and then we'll do some chins. And so those just alternate. And again, you're going to use that same procedure that we used here, where every time you drop a rep range, you're going to offset or you're going to reset the volume day just a little bit, just to lower the heat and allow this thing to work without overcooking yourself. Let me see, where were we? So this is a great program. It works really well. And like I said, with the offset, with the fact that you're running it over a 3-day week, it really slows down, how often you're beating the crap out of a guy with volume deadlifting or volume squatting. So lifters tend, once they've run through the regular Texas method once, this is a great program to switch to and run again. It'll take care of their training for a long time if they're smart about it and if they remember to reset those volume and intensity ratios. Once that's over, we might move on to something like a 4-week cycle. Okay, so this I stole, like most of my stuff, from Andy Baker. And there's a lot of percentages and stuff on here. I'll kind of touch on it briefly, and I think I can upload these later and you guys can steal this. But this is the same thing as the 4-day version, right? It's just it's a 4-week cycle. So it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, right? And the percentages that you see here are based off of your 1 rep max. So when we ended this 4-day version, and he worked his way down to a single, we'll usually end that with a testing day. And we'll talk about how to do a testing day towards the end. But, we'll maybe deload him for a week and then have him hit a 1 rep max and then move on to something like a percentage-based program. So this is 85% of your 1 rep max. If we look at the bench press for a triple, and it's 3 or more, so maybe he can do more than 3, but 3 is the minimum. And then press underneath that would be volume. That would be 75% of your 1 rep max that you set in the previous cycle. Okay. So we're going to use these percentages to figure out what the weights are for the first time through this cycle. After that, we don't need percentages anymore. It's just to take your 1 rep max numbers, plug them in here. And then after that, all you'll do is increase the weight over the previous time. So if you follow my cursor, if you can see it, I'm going to go diagonal. So for the first week, bench is 85% for a triple or more. Then diagonally, we go 90% for a double or more. And then all the way down to the last week of the cycle, 95% for a single or more. Okay, and that works that way with every lift. 85% for 3 or more, 90% for 2 or more, and then 95% for 1 or more. And we're basically cycling the intensity over 4 weeks. The volume basically does the same thing. So if you look at the press volume, 75% for 5 sets of 5, 80% for 5 sets of 4, and then finally 85% for 5 sets of 3. So both volume and intensity are cycling in this approach, and it works really well. I know Andy uses it all the time. And when you get a lifter to this sort of late stage in their programming where they need something that's more complicated, cycling intensities tends to work pretty well in terms of keeping people moving and also interested in their training, because they're not just grinding 5 sets of 5. Trust me, when they get down to week 3 and they're doing 85% for 5 triples instead of 5s, it's like they're delighted to not have to grind through volume 5s anymore. And so you can run this all the way down to that single. It usually takes a couple months to get through it. And then you can either move on to something else or back off and start the program again. So that's a 4-week version. And this, again, would be for someone who's like a late, intermediate, early advanced lifter, something like that. And then finally, this is a 2-day version of the Texas method. And this is something that I use for a lot of my older guys. So in my gym, if you're over 65, like, I don't want to see you more than twice a week, because it just is, it's less is more at that point. Ironically, those are the guys that seem to want to come in and just like grind it out every day. So you really have to back them off a little bit. But this is a great version. Now we're spreading it out over 2 weeks. So basically we've got a heavy day and a light day. So if we're looking at Monday, this is our volume squat, intensity bench, and intensity deadlift. So we're squatting volume and we're deadlifting the intensity. And then Thursday is a light day. So every week, Monday is going to be the heavy day for the squat and the deadlift, heavy either volume or heavy meaning intensity. And then Thursday is going to be a lighter day. Okay, so if we just look at the squat here, week 1, Monday, volume, and then week 2, Monday is intensity. And then both days on Thursday are light days. So that's just 80% of the volume weight for both weeks. You can bump it up 5 pounds. It doesn't really matter. It's just meant to keep things fresh. So they go volume squat, intensity squat, light squat. Because bench and press aren't so stressful, we can flip those, or we can do more. We can do them closer together. So bench week 1 will be intensity, and then Thursday will be press volume, and then week 2 press intensity, and then Thursday bench volume. So those two flip every time. And then deadlift, again, Monday is intensity, and then the following Monday is volume. Spaces them out quite nicely. So throwing that light day in there on the lower body lifts really helps build in a lot of extra recovery so these guys don't get beaten up too much. So this works really well. I've had guys run this for months. And again, anytime you see the intensity number, we're doing 1 set of 5 to start, but then we're titrating, or not titrating, but those reps are being adjusted down as the intensity continues to go up and up and up. Okay. And I'll just flash back to those percentages. Again, 1 set of 5, 90%, 2 sets of 3, 85%, 3 sets of 2, 82.5%. And then finally singles, we're at 80% of volume day. Same thing applies here. Intensity just keeps going up. Volume will get adjusted periodically, and we're going to stick with sets of 5. If you are going to use this with an older guy, sometimes they can get away with less volume. So it says 5 sets of 5 on the squat. I might have him do 4 sets of 5 on the squat. Or sometimes they can even get away with 3 sets of 5. You really have to, depends on the lifter, how they're doing, and you can adjust it. But most guys in their 60s don't really need to be grinding out 5 sets of 5 squats across. Which brings us to another version, which this is a short and sweet, abbreviated version of the Texas method. So this is something that I'll use, if a guy doesn't have a lot of time, and this is just basically ascending sets of 5. So if you look at volume day, we're doing 50% for 5, 70% for 5, 90% for 5, and then 1 top set of 5. So these 50, 70, 90 are all based off the top set, and which would be about 75% of your 1 rep max. Okay, so this is just Bill Starr's Ascending Fives program, basically, but formatted in the Texas method way. So volume day, 4 sets of ascending sets, and then 1 back off set for as many reps as possible. Don't fail. Just go, leave a rep in the tank, but you'll usually be able to get like 8 reps or something at the end. And then intensity day, if we jump over, we know what light day is. We jump over to intensity day for the squat. We're just doing those same percentages, but we're titrating the weight down until we do that. You're just working down to just 1 top set. So this is just instead of grinding out volume over and over again, you're with 5 sets of 5. This is just a really quick way of getting a lot of volume work in a very short amount of time, because those warm-up sets, 50%, 70%, 90%, those warm-up sets they don't even really, it doesn't even feel like they count till you get to that 90% one. And then you do your top set, take a couple minutes, do a back off set, and then you're good to go. And then the intensity day is even shorter, because you just do basically 3 warm-ups, and then you hit your intensity day set and you're done. Deadlift for this little short and sweet program, I put on the light day, and same thing. We're just working up to 1 heavy set and then a back off. And this program, if you've got a guy who's a lifter, who's, really dedicated and is really focused on getting as strong as he possibly can, I'm not going to put him on this program, because it doesn't work as well as the ones that have more like sets across for volume. But it is a good compromise if you've got someone who's, done with LP and they're, dedicated to training, but not super fond of the idea of coming into the gym on Monday and banging out 5 sets of 5 squats and 5 sets of 5 benches and then power cleans and being in the gym for 3 hours. Like, it's just not fun for everybody. So I'll use this one with a guy we still use the same format of manipulating volume and intensity, but we do it in a way that's more of a hybrid with a heavy, light, medium setup. And then the final slide I have to talk about is using Texas method for meet prepping. This is my go-to program for for someone who's going to a powerlifting meet, because it works really well within the structure of the meet and how that's going to work. Intensity day is basically a day that you can hold a mock meet, and you can go over the commands and you can put them in their singlet and get them used to, pretending that they're going to a meet and competing. So anytime we've got a lifter, anytime we've got a lifter that's going to a meet, we'll try, if their schedule permits, maybe 8 weeks out, to switch their intensity day to Saturday, because that's usually going to be the day that they're competing. So if we can do that, then they get used to doing heavy things on Saturdays, which is good. And so intensity day becomes basically a mock meet. Now, this is straight out of Practical Programming. So I pulled this out of that book, and I've used it for years, and you can go through and read it in there, but I'll just lay it out for you. So if we're in this example, we're 3 weeks out. 3 weeks out is going to be your last normal volume and intensity day that you would run, like if you were running this version of the Texas method, right? This is the standard Texas method. So we're doing volume on Monday, then we do the light day, and then Saturday is going to be a mock meet. So we've intentionally, whether or not this guy is down to singles organically, he's worked down from 5s to 3s to 2s to 1s, we're going to switch him to singles. And he's going to do somewhere between 3 and 5 singles for each lift. And the bench is going to be the focus if he's competing in powerlifting, because that's what you compete in. So we're going to move the press basically to light day. And every week, volume and intensity will be bench pressing. And so we're going to do 3 to 5 singles every intensity day. As you get closer to the meet, we're doing them with commands. If he's benching, he's doing a pause, right? And if it's the real mock meet, we're going to put him in a singlet and pretend it's the real day. So the 3rd week out or 3 weeks out, that's our last mock meet. Okay. And then 2 weeks out, we do one more day. So add some more stress, a light day, and then his second to last intensity day is going to be working up to the openers. So we're going to figure out, based off this, intensity day from the previous week, we're going to start planning what attempts we want our guy to make, or girl, excuse me. And we'll use basically their openers for the second to last intensity day. So they'll work up to what should essentially be a 3-rep max, right? If you're going to do an opener, it's usually something, if you were sick, if your dog died, you could walk out there and hit a single. And that's usually somewhere around 90% of your final attempt, something in there. So all they're going to do is come in, put their singlet on with commands, do work up to their 1-rep max, or their opener for the squat, opener for the bench, opener for the deadlift. They're going to go home. It's not a really stressful day, but it gives them practice in the meet environment. And then meet week is great. They don't train on Monday, so there's no volume day. Tuesday or Wednesday, they'll go in and do 80% of their expected 3rd attempt. So figure out what we're projecting they're going to try for their 3rd attempt at the meet. And they're going to do 3 doubles at 80% of that. No deadlifts. They did their last heavy deadlift basically as their opener the previous week. We're going to let them deload and not deadlift. And then meet day, we're going in. They're used to it. They've been training on Saturdays, and they're going to go in and hopefully have a great meet. So that's how I use the program. I mean, this is definitely my go-to approach for getting most lifters ready for meets. That being said, most of my guys are recreational athletes, so there are coaches who I'm sure have more elaborate meet prep strategies. This one just always seems to work out pretty well. So that's really it for using this program. Just to recap for the people that came late, and I'll try and put the slides up, but the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to remember here, so I don't have to deal with a bunch of complaints on Reddit about the Texas method being a shitty program, is that occasionally it is okay to reset your volume day, to back off the weight a little bit, and that will allow you to keep driving up intensity. And then also look at it, when you go into the Texas method, it's possible to run it for a really long time, especially if you're willing to go through different versions of it. But look at the classic version, as this is going to be my opportunity to expose myself to weights or reps that are lower than 5. So this is going to be how I learn how to do triples, doubles, and singles. Because you can look at all the 1 rep max calculators in the world based off your 5s. If you haven't actually practiced doing or a double, you're going to suck at it. So you need to. It's a skill in and of itself, and you need exposure to that. And this provides an incredibly simple way to get a lifter used to doing those. So just look at it like, it may take you 2 months. You might go 6 months on it. But you're just going to use it as a way to get down from sets of 5 to sets of 1, and then learn how to do that, and then figure out where to go from there. And occasionally resetting the intensity day or the volume day, excuse me. Okay, let me look at some of these questions here and if I can help you guys out. Pete, can you talk about modifications you make for female lifters? Yeah, for female lifters, I'll switch the volume day to triples. So they'll do 5 sets of 3 usually instead of 5 sets of 5. Just bump the intensity up a little bit. Rip's talked about this quite a bit in terms of women. The relative intensity of a set of 5 versus a set of 3 for women is a little bit different. And I find that to be true. The best example I've ever seen is, if I've had guys who, you back off 5 pounds on their bench press. And, if they're getting stuck with a set of 5 and you back off 5 or 10 pounds, they might do another set of 5 barely. If you do that with a woman, a lot of times she'll do like a set of 10. So it often will work better if the women train at a higher intensity so they can use triples. Not every woman is like this. Some respond really well to 5s. So you got to play around with it. But that's one change I'll make, is switching the 5 sets of 5 to 5 sets of 3. Other than that, I kind of train them the same way. What else? Is it possible to rerun any of the same versions again with a weight reset, or should you just move on to the next version? Good question. By the end of the classic Texas method, when I did this back in the day and didn't have coaches, it was like you got down to a single, you reset and tried to start again with triples. And you looked at where did you switch your triples from, where did you switch from triples to doubles? So if you started triple, 400, 405, 410, and then at 415, you dropped to doubles. When you ran it out and went back and reset the program, you would try and start your triples at 420. So 5 pounds heavier than where you left off. I've done it. It gets really grindy. So personally, I run the classic Texas method one time through. We get what we get. We get a guy down to his singles, and then from there, he doesn't want to go back unless we're going into meet prep mode. If we're going into a meet, then we'll do like an 8 or 12-week cycle of the Texas method because it works really well within that structure. But other than that, we're going to go through Texas method one time the classic way, and then usually we'll go to the 4-day version, or we'll switch to like a heavy, light, medium program or something like that, because they usually don't want to go back to, as you get through, you start with your LP and then you go the Texas method, which isn't really that fun. There's not a lot of assistance exercises. And then all of a sudden you get to the 4-day version and you got an upper body day and you get to do some, bro stuff, or you get some variety in the assistance exercise. Most people don't want to go back after that to just like grinding out heavy sets of 5 all the time. So, we'll get to the 4-day. And then after that, cycling it, using this version, not that one, sorry, where'd that go? This thing. We'll use the 4-day cyclical approach. And, there's only 10 slides in this thing, and half of them are, but those programs, this is years of training if you want to run them consecutively, and you do it correctly, and you eat, and you realize you're not trying to lose weight, but you eat enough to do it. And you're smart about resetting the volume day every once in a while. You could train for years with just the templates that I've laid out today. You'd probably be bored, but you could do it. All right, let's see. Other questions here. Before lockdown, volume day became its own animal. Yes, volume day sucks. So, Ben, yeah, volume day is horrible, and that's why, like I said, it needs to be reset. Let me scroll back and see if I'm missing. I'm going through. I got a little fluffy around the belly. Should I drop some weight and then run full TM? Well, that's every lifter's dilemma, right? It's you want to be big and strong, and then you realize at some point you just got fat. So you gotta, Texas method, or the classic version of the Texas method, is not an ideal program for cutting. It's just too hard to do it, and you're not going to get as far as you could have gotten. So again, if you come off LP and you want to cut, do something else, or cut and just realize it's not going to last you very long. But if you're committed to getting stronger, if you run LP for 3 to 6 months and then you run Texas method for another 3 to 6 months and you end up with a really heavy 1-rep max, that's great. That was a good, year of your life that you dedicated to getting stronger. And now you can cut and make that the priority. But trying to cut and do the Texas method at the same time does not work very well for the strength part. The cutting is all diet. So, but yes, you can get fluffy if you do the Texas method, or if you eat too much doing any program. Let's see. For any questions you guys might have. If you have them now, post them up, because I'm going to wrap this thing up. What template would you recommend looking at if you don't want to use TM after running LP? So I would usually, like I said at the beginning, we're going to use either Texas method or a heavy, light, medium. So it just depends on sort of the psychology of my lifter. You're gauging the person to see, are you going to be able to tolerate, volume squatting, volume benching, and deadlifting, or are you going to, or am I going to lose you as a client because you just hate it? So, I will, if it's a Texas method candidate, then I'm going to usually go to a heavy, light, medium, and I'll usually do something like Bill Starr's ascending sets of 5. And the way that that's set up is it's almost like a Texas method if you think about it, because you've got your heavy day on Monday, and then light day Wednesday, and then medium day on Friday. Well, medium day eventually gets to the point where it's basically volume day. So it's just kind of the Texas method in reverse, where Monday is intensity day and Friday is volume day. Because as you run a heavy, light, medium program, you might start cycling the reps down from, you might start with a set of 5 and then just keep it heavy, 3s, 2s, 1s. Meanwhile, your medium day is going to be, you're going to be adjusting that based off your heavy day. So it's almost the same program, but I love the ascending sets of 5 just for speed. And it really gets a lifter. They have to focus on one hard thing to do. Just get in, work up to that one heavy set of 5, and then be done with it. They can usually finish their squats in 15 minutes. And so the ascending 5s heavy, light, medium program works really well if I have a client who's not a good candidate for the Texas method. And just to go back, that's kind of what this version is, right? With these percentages, ascending 5s, and then one heavy set, and then a back off set. So you work up to one heavy set of 5, take a break. These first sets don't even require any rest. So you just load the weight, go, and then do a back off, and then move on. It takes about 20 minutes to get through the whole workout. Let's see. When I was on TM, volume days got up to 3 hours. Yes. What was the weight too heavy? Or, if it was working on volume and intensity, because intensity day is the thing that we care about. I don't care. Like, no one cares how much volume you can do. So if whatever volume day you're doing is producing the results you want on intensity day, then the program's working. Don't screw with it. But if you're grinding out your reps on volume day and you're grinding out your reps on intensity day and you're not making progress, you have to adjust something. So I would bet that if you didn't periodically go in there and reset volume day according to the percentages I laid out earlier, that everything just gets too heavy. Because if you're doing singles, on your intensity day, 5 sets of 1, and your volume day is 90% of that, like you just can't do it. It's just it's not going to work. You have to lower that weight. That should be more like 80% of what you're doing for singles. Rather than maintaining 5 sets of 5 on volume day, would you ever keep weights at the same and adjust the sets and reps? I will have. I'll drop sets. So if I want to get my guy, I want to use the minimum amount of volume that I need to make progress. So if I find out that dropping a set of 5, so he's going to do 4 sets of 5. And a lot of times that's what we'll do. If I make him run the regular Texas method straight through down to singles with 5 sets of 5 on volume day, when we switch over to the 4-day version for squat volume, I'll probably only have him do 4 sets of 5. Deadlift volume, he's only going to do 3 sets of 5. These are my lifters like in their 30s and above. He doesn't need to be doing 5 sets of 5 squats. I mean, if he's got the grit and determination to do it and he wants to, it definitely works. I'm not saying it won't work. It's probably better, but just for practical applications, 4 sets of 5 squats, especially if he's just come off the regular version of the Texas method, is a welcome relief, and he'll be much happier to do the program, considering he only has to do it once, like every 2 weeks. So, let's see. But yeah, in terms of adjusting sets and reps, I basically just drop a set. That was the case. I did not reset the volume. Yeah, right. Cool. So that looks like it's been about an hour. If you guys have any more questions, I can field a few. Otherwise, I will leave you with the most important slide here, which is resetting your volume day. Don't forget to do it. And let me just make sure everything's cool here. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'll see if I can find a way to upload these slides if you want to steal all the programs out of there. That should be it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. All right.